The following is a video series reviewing the top 20 most common bird species found in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties of Indiana. The data was gathered from eBird.org, a website used to record bird sightings and observations. The report covers the past 10 years, 2010 to 2020, of observations in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties. It represents the most commonly reported, not necessarily the most abundant. This methodology helps to standardize the data between birds that travel in large groups and those that are more solitary. Coming in at number 18 is the American crow, or the Corvus brachyrhynchos. The American crow is part of the Corvidae, or the crow family. The American crow is a large blackbird with a large, thick bill and longish black legs, black eyes, and a short, squared-off tail. They are about 15 to 20 inches in length, and the sexes are similar. Here are some crows pictured. As you can see, their entire body is glossy black. When in flight, their wings are rounded, and oftentimes their wingtips are fanned out, appearing almost unkept. They rarely glide and instead flap their wings. When moving on the ground, they will use those long legs to make short, distant strides, either by walking or hopping. Here is a map of the distribution of American crows. As you can see, American crows are a year-round resident of Indiana. However, their numbers do increase considerably during the winter when those from Canada migrate south during the colder months. American crows can be found in a variety of habitats, with open spaces containing tall structures for perching. Forested areas is their most preferred habitat as long as the forests are not too dense. They tend to stay away from the most inner sections of the forest and prefer more fragmented forests or forest edges. The high level of forest fragmentation across the United States has helped the species population survival considerably. Also, due to their high tolerance for human activity and a varying diet, you can find them often in urban and suburban areas, roosting on buildings, utility towers, and trees in cities and neighborhood parks. Speaking of roosting, American crows can create impressive large numbers of roosting groups during the wintertime. Crows spend considerable time perched in trees, but they also often forage on the ground. American crows are notorious for being smarter than the average avian bird. They exhibit numerous interesting behaviors, suggesting more advanced brain functions. One crow behavior commonly observed by American crows is mobbing. This is where the crow attacks other birds. Oftentimes, they are the larger birds like hawks or eagles. They do this in an effort to ward off the bird from their nest to protect their young. American crows have a considerably loud cawing song, some consider to be noisy and unpleasant. When in large roosting groups, their harmony of caws can make quite a boisterous symphony. Let's take a listen. Crows can make up to 20 different types of calls, so be prepared for their different pitches, sounds, and qualities when in the field. Let's take a listen to one more example of their call. The American crow is omnivorous, meaning they eat both plants and meat. Their diet is very diverse, as they are considered generalists, eating most anything from invertebrates to smaller birds, smaller mammals, seeds, grains, fruits, carrion or dead animals, and even discarded human waste from cities and landfills. Since they are not very picky eaters, American crows will visit feeders. However, this is a bird that some people would rather not have at their feeders because of their voracious diet. However, if you would like to attract this bird, the best feeders for American crows are platform feeders. However, American crows are just as happy feeding on the ground too, so you could just spread food out on the ground. The American crow's average clutch size is 4 to 5 eggs. They make a large cup-shaped nest, mostly out of branches, both dead and fresh. Their nests are located in various types of trees. Of course, this is not a bird that is in major trouble here in Indiana, but let's take a look at its worldwide status. In 2018, the American crow was considered least concern by the IUCN Red List. This means that the species population does not qualify as threatened or endangered. As previously mentioned, the high level of forest fragmentation across the United States and their high tolerance of human activity has helped the species population survival considerably. And what about the American crow's vulnerability to climate change? Remember, climate change is the term used to refer to the Earth's average increase in global temperatures in the last 50 years due to human activity. The temperatures rising just slightly, think only a few degrees, can have a massive impact on birds. In 2019, National Audubon Society released their publication of the Survival by Degrees 389 Birds at Risk, which focused on bird species risks of extinction due to climate change. The report found that for northern Indiana, the American crow is considered to be at a low risk of extinction due to climate change. Now let's review some other bird species that are commonly confused with American crows in our region. Let's start with a common misnomer. Often, people confuse American crows for common ravens. That is understandable since they look very similar and the regions overlap in other parts of North America. However, you can rest assured knowing that the common raven are not found in Indiana. The closest you would have to travel to see a common raven is northern Michigan. So if you see a large blackbird with a thick bill in Indiana, you're most likely looking at an American crow. With that being said, there are other blackbirds that you might confuse an American crow for that actually do occur here in Indiana. We will review these next. One might confuse an American crow for a turkey vulture, especially from a distance due to their foraging behavior. It is common to see both crows and turkey vultures eating carrion or dead animals on the side of the road. When up close, the physical features should distinguish them better because turkey vultures have bald red heads. Also, when in flight, their shape can look similar too. However, the turkey vulture will have an almost two-toned color, whereas the American crow will be all black. Also, turkey vultures glide, and the American crow almost constantly flaps its wings. Finally, the turkey vulture is just a much larger bird overall, with a length of about 25 to 30 inches. Remember, the American crow is only about 15 to 20 inches in length. Common grackles can be commonly confused for American crows. Common grackles are also very common here in northern Indiana. There are some key differences between these two species. The American crow does not have the purplish-blue iridescence like the common grackle does. The American crow doesn't have yellow beady eyes like the common grackle either. Finally, the American crow is just overall larger bird. Common grackles are 11 to 14 inches in length, and again, the American crow is about 15 to 20. European starlings can be commonly confused for American crows too. European starlings is one of the invasive birds of the United States. There are some key differences to look out for between these two species. Instead of a black bill and black legs, the European starling has orangish legs and a yellowish bill. Although they are both black, the European starling has more of an iridescence on their feathers, as well as light speckled spots on their feathers. Remember, the American crow is all black. Finally, the European starling is much smaller than American crows, only about 8 to 9 inches in length. American crows can be confused for another blackbird found in Indiana, that is the red-winged blackbird. The best way to tell them apart is to look for the red patches on the wings of the red-winged blackbird. You can also use size to tell them apart because red-winged blackbirds are much smaller than American crows with a length of only 6 to 9 inches. Now we will look at 2 other bird species that the American crow could be confused for. These last 2 species are far less common than the others we just discussed. The first is the brewer's blackbird. As you can see in this photo, brewer's blackbird are black all over. However, the brewer's blackbird's eyes are yellowish in color, whereas the American crows are black. Also, the bill size of the brewer's blackbird is much smaller than the American crow. Finally, brewer's blackbirds are smaller than American crows, only about 8 to 10 inches in length. Finally, we will compare the American crow to the rusty blackbird, which unfortunately has become increasingly less common in Indiana due to a decline in their species population. They look similar to American crows, but there are some differences to look out for. Again, the eye color is different, just like on the brewer's blackbird. Also, the rusty blackbird will have more of a rusty colored plumage during the winter, which is how they get their name. Finally, just like all the other species we have discussed, the American crow is simply larger than the rusty blackbird. The rusty blackbird is only 8 to 10 inches in length. Thank you for watching the video on number 18, the American crow, commonly found in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties of Indiana. For more information on other common birds found in this region, please visit SBEAudubon.org. The sources for this video are listed in the video description.